Today we're inside and we're cutting our teeth on some home electrical. I installed this badass reverse osmosis water system which works great. However, the plug underneath my sink was not working when I moved in. I shotgunned a new GFCI in there, a new outlet, but it did not work, and this requires a 120 volt source, so I'm just running an extension cord right now over to my outlet over on the side of the kitchen. But I really want to get this thing diagnosed. So I got an outlet tester today at the hardware store, and I checked the outlet. It has no power. I also checked the hot and the neutral wire, and I have no voltage there whatsoever. So I only have 3 wires coming out, a hot, neutral, and a ground. And so I was thinking maybe it's connected in circuit or in series to another outlet. So I traced that outlet around and I just kind of checked the circuit breaker. No circuits were kicked. So I just kind of followed the circuit, and I was trying to think of what other GFCIs I have, whatever outlets I have around the house. So I remembered on my home inspection when I first bought this house, this outlet was said to be not working. So I bought an outlet tester today at the hardware store, and I checked this outlet, and we're getting no power, and we're getting no power. However, I busted out my circuit tester, my multimeter, and I'm checking voltage, and at the neutral and the hot on the top, I'm getting no voltage. So you can see right there, I'm getting 120 on the bottom and nothing on the top. So what I think is happening is we have power going into this GFCI or this outlet, and the outlet is bad. And then off the back side of this circuit, we have the outlet that's underneath the sink going to it after that. So I'm going to try replacing this GFCI real quick, and then I'll see if that outlet is downstream and if that ends up working too. What's better than these clamping fluke leads is, at least in this case, these ones. So these collars pull down, and there's a needle that protrudes when you tighten this, and so you clamp it down around the wire and then you pierce the insulation. So let's do this. Run that on there, we pierce that tight, and then we run this to this hot wire, pierce that tight, boom. We're at 120 volts. So I have power going to this outlet, just the outlet's not working. So now what I'll do is, my circuit breaker box is right there, so I'm just gonna keep these leads on so I can monitor and then try to find out what breaker runs to this circuit. Alright, so we're still at 120 volts, which is good. Let's take this cover off. And yeah, I wanted to run these string lights out here above the hot tub, but this outlet's not working, so it's a good time for us to get it figured out. It's probably one of these 15 amp circuits. It's not that. There we go, found it. So second down from the left, I'm gonna go get a marker so I can mark this so we know for next time. Hot tub exterior outlet. So now let's click this off. We'll drop power off to that outlet. Now, I'm no home electrician. I've done some automotive work. DC is what I'm comfortable at, 12 volt DC. So this is new for me, but what better time to cut my teeth than now with you guys? And I did some research on this a little bit, so we're trying to learn. All right, our 2 neutrals are off. Now we can pull our 2 power. That's out. All right. We'll go get some needle nose. All right, so I got a new outlet, just a new GFCI, 15 amp, which is what the circuit is that I'm working on. See, the load terminal under this label are for additional receptacles. Got it. So basically what it's saying is you only need to wire this top in order to have power to both of these. If you are loading this one, then it's going to a secondary circuit. So that means that the circuit that I'm troubleshooting in the kitchen is probably ran off this bottom one, which is good news. Which means that our theory is probably correct. So on this style of outlet, it has these receptacles that you can actually feed the wire in here behind the Phillips. So you don't have to do the traditional hook style. So I'm gonna try that because it seems like it's really effective. We're gonna back out our screws for the hot side. I like this way right now because I can trim off any excess copper that I have, and so it's gonna be well protected when I install it back in. And so we'll do the same thing on this side for the neutrals. I think before I do that, I'll probably get this ground installed. Throw that on. Snug all our screws down. I don't really like how tough it is to get this back into the receptacle. I'm sure there's a better way to run the wiring or something. It's just so bound up. I mean, I could cut excess off and maybe that would solve our issue, because there's just so much wire bound up in the back of this box that the outlet doesn't want to fit back in nicely. Twisting it like I did probably doesn't help either. Can I feed some of it back in? Massage it in? That works pretty good. All right, so the new outlet's in. I probably should have tested the circuits with my multimeter here before I installed it, but that's okay. We'll just flip the breaker back on and check it with the outlet tester. I'm no electrician. I know automotive electrical pretty decent, but 120 volt, 240, AC is all new to me, so this is one of my first home electrical jobs. If you guys have any recommendations on what I could do to get rid of that excess wire inside the box, whether you think it's trimming it back and then stripping and reinstalling, or if it's okay just to have the wires bunched in there and kind of pressed in, then yeah, let me know. Let me know what your opinion is. I guess our next step is we can take my Klein outlet tester and let's pop this sucker in, and I'm gonna go hit the breaker. Let's see what happens. All right, so we reset the outlet. We have 2 orange lights indicating that we are correct, and 2 orange lights indicating that we're correct. This tester over to the kitchen and see if we got that outlet to work. There's this switch I've been wondering what it's about. So let's kick that on. Now let's check it. Hey, so that works. So that means that that circuit is good, and that circuit is good. So we fixed our issue, guys. I was gonna think about chasing this wiring down because this is my main issue. And so that means if I kick this switch off again, Got it. So this outlet is on a switch above the sink, and it was not receiving power because this outlet is at the end of the circuit from that exterior outlet. So the power was coming into that exterior outlet. The GFCI was bad. It wasn't letting the current pass through. So by rectifying that exterior outlet, we now freed up the circuit for this outlet. And now we know that this outlet is on a switch, which is good news because I've been wanting to do a garbage disposal install video and I didn't have power down here, but now we have this power issue fixed. So that's a big win-win. And we get to delete this extension cord off of my water system now too. So now I need to get this outlet installed back into the wall. I'm tempted to go buy a garbage disposal today and install that puppy. This thing needs a new gasket anyways. But I'm going to have to redo all the plumbing if I do that, because I'm going to have this big honking unit. And I have this 2-basin sink. So I'll have to research garbage disposals before I jump into that job. Also guys, if you're curious about a reverse osmosis water system, this is the WaterDrop G2. It's such a great system. My water here is pretty good, just the city water that I'm on. However, water through this filter, oh, it's such good water. I mean, it helps clean it up, and it's not the most efficient filtration system. However, the water coming out tastes so good. And I like good tasting water because then I'm more motivated to drink more of it. Water's flowing, so that's good. Get this extension cord out of there for once and for all. Now we can work on getting this plate back on. Alright, besides some scuffed paint, this job is done, and that was super successful. I've been holding on to this dimmer switch in here too, so let's see if we can get this installed today. So for this next part, let's see if we could service this light switch. I've been meaning to put in a dimmer for this light switch over my dining room table. I shocked myself again. Let's, because I touched power to the ground, so I grounded myself with my thumb. I don't know what circuit this is, but let's go get the multimeter and we'll figure out how to get this shut down so I stop electrocuting myself. We should have 120 volts between these two because we're bypassing the switch, right? The switch is going to allow that 120 to go through and then up to the light. So we have that 120 right now. Let me go play around with the circuit breakers and find which one it is. Should be that first one, I think. Hey, we killed power. Alright. So now power is disconnected. The way they had this light installed is you just push the wire into the back, I think. Wow, it's really in there. Press in slots to release wire. Alright, let me go get a little pick tool. So I learned about these connectors this morning. It's like this push-in style connector for wires in the rear. I don't have any experience with it. This one's pretty stout. So yeah, you just need to push down into these slots and then the wires will get released. And then for here, we just need to disconnect our ground. And that's good. Now here's our new light switch. It does not have the same style, and it's actually asking us to wire tie these in the rear. Let's see, what does this one say? This wire is used in three-way installations only. For single pole installation, do not remove this insulating label. Alright, so I don't need it, I don't think. This is going to be our ground. These are going to be our two powers. This kit came with wire nuts, so we're going to just wire nut these two and then wire nut our ground, and we should be good to go, I think. Before I put this back in, I'm going to go kick the breaker back on and we can test our new light switch and see if this dining room light works. Alright, moment of truth. Let's see. If I put you guys here, you'll be able to see me and the bulb. Hey, it dims. Alright, and I think it's brighter. Sweet. Success, guys. Now let's get this thing put back together. There's a little mode switch in there. What does that do? Also, the wall plate is sold separately. That's kind of a crock of BS, don't you think? You buy a light switch like this for 20 bucks, a dimmer, you'd think it would come with the wall plate. Alright, now we can kick our breaker back on, and I did learn that this is for the stove. The stove outlet, so we learned some new outlet locations today, which is good as well. Back on. Put this away. So there's a little switch up here that came with the new dimmer switch. Let's play around with that and see what happens. Well, the mode switch doesn't do anything. I played around with it, but the dimmer switch function is working perfect, and so I'm really happy with it. It'll allow me to better control the lighting in here. Well guys, all in all, it was a really successful day. This all started because I needed that outlet under the sink to start working. I installed that reverse osmosis water system, and I was tired of running an extension cord down here to a good outlet. I shotgunned that new GFCI in there when I moved in, maybe about a month or two after I moved into the house, trying to fix it, and that is not the right way to do it. I should have had my multimeter with me, and I should have done some research beforehand on home electrical, which I did, finally, so now I do know a little bit. But all in all, the things to take away from this is do not just shotgun an outlet into it. Have a multimeter with you and check across the power and the neutral wire on the backside. See if you even have power going to it in the first place. If you don't have power across those two wires or close to 120 volts, then it's pointless to put the new outlet in it because you're not getting power. Secondly, disconnect the breakers before you touch anything. I shocked myself twice today, and it's because I didn't know the breaker locations and I was just going to try to work around, but just make the extra trips back to the breaker box, have a multimeter onto those two back wires, and just check to make sure that you have those wires dead before you go ahead and touch it with your hands or with a screwdriver. Lastly, if you are buying a dimmer switch or replacement switches or outlets like that, make sure they come with the wall plate or else you're going to be making another trip to the hardware store like I am right about now. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you learned something new. I'm really happy with the progress we made on the house today, and I learned a ton. I'm feeling super confident with home electrical now, and I'm honestly ready to start tackling all the outlets around the property that I know aren't working. There was a couple that were noted on my home inspection when I was first in escrow, and so I need to go back on there. There's a couple outlets on the east side of the garage here that I need to address too, but we'll make sure to get those knocked out once I get some more outlets at the hardware store. I hope you guys all enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on my next day off.